let's evaluate some of the best captains in cricket and see if MSD is the greatest out of all of them. Some numbers before we start that conversation. MSD has an overall win percentage of 53.61 across formats, winning 178 matches of the 332 that he played or he captained India in. Now, he guided the Indian cricket team to its most successful phase between 2007 and 2018, where he captained his side to 3 ICC trophies, namely T20 World Cup 2007, World Cup 2011, Champions Trophy 2013. Also, under his leadership in 2009, Team India attained the best Test cricket ranking of number 1 for the first time in their history. Now, talking about the IPL, under Dhoni's captaincy, CSK reached the IPL playoffs 14 times while appearing in the final 10 times. If you look at the overall numbers across formats, MS Dhoni has the second best win percentage after Ricky Ponting. Ricky Ponting's percentage is 67.9, having won 220 games out of 324. MSD is in the second position with 178 wins in 332 matches. There, take a look at that. Ricky Ponting has just lost 77 matches in his career, having played 300 plus. MS Dhoni, 332, won 178, lost 120. Then there is Graeme Smith. He's in the third position, having 163. Alan Border is in the fourth position. And after that, it is Virat Kohli. So Alan Border, 271 matches as captain, has won 139 and lost 89. And then in the fifth position overall is Virat Kohli, 213 matches. He's won 135, have lost. Virat Kohli has lost 60 matches. Okay, but captaincy is more than just numbers. So let's get straight to our guests on the show. Let me begin with Jamie. Then Jamie, this is going to be an interesting debate because this is not just about numbers. Captaincy is so much more. And if you take tests out of it, though, I do believe that MS Dhoni is right up there when it comes to all the great captains. So, with that, I'm going to ask you: is he the greatest in white ball cricket?
Good evening. Again, it depends how you interpret that word "greatest," right? It can be rather subjective. But look, let's just dwell a bit on those numbers. He's the first captain, Meha, to have, under his captaincy, to have the T20 World Cup, One Day World Cup, and Champions Trophy. Right now, this is far from English cricket's or European cricket's treble, but it is outstanding that that at one time he had been the first captain and definitely the only Indian to have these 3 titles under his name. He also took India to number 1. Not as long as Virat Kohli was able to hold the team there, and even that's a story for a different day. But from a record, from a stats perspective view, that MS Dhoni was able to do that while also being the best finisher of his era in one-day cricket, a very, very handy T20I batsman, a decent test player, but more than all these things, the way that even now at the age of he's going to be 42, 43, he's still second to none when it comes to keeping to spinners, as Shubman Gill will attest, and also to standing up to medium pacers behind the stumps, right? I'm not going to dwell too much on his success in the IPL. I still believe yes, it requires skill, but that's a corporate league. Let's just see what the man has done in international cricket. Also, like all famous or great captains, again, the great word is subjective here. When did he take charge? He took charge at a time when there was transition. He actually, one of the stranger things, and you and I were there in Sri Lanka, was he chose to skip that Sri Lanka tour when he knew that he was going to be unveiled as the next Test captain. Beyond that, and also his last couple of years as a Test captain were very, very poor. He oversaw consecutive defeats in England and Australia. Barring those, what he contributed to selecting players from smaller regions, for backing players, for some outstanding tactical decisions. Yes, we have to admit, luck also played a big factor in the legend of MS Dhoni becoming what it is. But to my mind, he is definitely the greatest. If you see greatest as results, team results, as well as individual results.
Okay, what about you, Vedam? Do you agree with Jamie? And also, I mean, I'm just saying T20s. I would think a lot of people would think that that he is the greatest, right? With not just with the results, the way he took India to that maiden World Cup triumph in 2007 in South Africa. Then what he's done in the IPL, and the way he brings out the best in players. A lot of times he's not given the best team, didn't have the greatest bowling attack, but still won matches. So when you look at all of that, his numbers, the way he's captained India in T20s, you think, yes, he's right up there. He is the best. But when it comes to ODIs, would you agree that he is the greatest, given that there are others that he's competing with who've done extremely well, be it Steve Waugh, there's Ricky Ponting, even you look at Clive Lloyd, there are so many others. So how do you see his performance as a captain in ODIs?
Hi, Neha. Hi, Meha. Basically, what happens in a sport like cricket is captain is only as good as his team is. Gordon Greenidge made that famous statement when he's speaking about the captaincy of the West Indies. When asked if Clive Lloyd was a great captain, he said even a donkey could have been the captain of West Indies, and we would have still won. He said, that's exactly what he thought of captaincy. But I beg to differ on one particular point because Dhoni's impact as a captain of the Indian cricket team has been phenomenal, phenomenal. Because if we cast our mind back, during the Greg Chappell era, Chappell had a problem, handling the Indian way of doing things, maybe in Australia that would have been open and spoken, everybody would have spoken. Because I've seen it myself in one of those tours when Alan Border was the captain of the Australian A team. They actually had a meeting in a bar. I was at the bar. They had a team meeting at the bar in the evening when everybody, wanted to talk and say whatever they wanted to say, of course, in a more disciplined way. And later when Border spoke, there was pin drop silence, and then somebody disagreed with him, somebody agreed with him, and then they all sat down to have a drink. In India, that would never happen. And Greg Chappell had that issue because the juniors were not talking in the presence of the seniors. And that is when he started having separate meetings with Dhoni, because Dhoni was a guy who could talk. And he would talk, he would say what is wrong and what's right and things like that. So Chappell actually liked that. And of course, he was accused of having groupism because he was having 2 or 3 different types of meetings, some with the seniors and some with the juniors. But be that as it may, what we really understood is Dhoni quickly grasped from Chappell that the West Indies became a great team. They were a good team, they became a great team because of fitness. And he immediately realized that the Indian team to win actually had to get fit. And if you remember during that phase when he became the captain, he got rid of many of the senior players, whether it was Virender Sehwag or Rahul Dravid or VVS Lakshman. He just phased them out. Virtually all of them were phased out, except for maybe Tendulkar. And that made a great impact because the guy who took over from him later, Kohli took it a step forward, took it to another level altogether. But what they succeeded between the two of them was getting a very, very fit Indian team.